Hey everyone, I'm Ryan Betson, and this is More the Players, the PopCulturists PlayStation Podcast Extra, our supplementary show where we deep dive into one specific title. And today, it is WWE 2K24, and to join me, I could literally not think of anyone better. It's my good wrestling buddy, it's Josh Robinson. How are you, my friend?
I'm what's the best podcast way to say things? I'm honored to be here.
Oh, good.
That's a good answer, isn't it?
Well, you can tell you've podcasted before.
Oh, just a couple of times, bud.
Dealing with a profesh.
No, they're probably like, who's this guy?
Yeah. Well, actually, that's a very good moment. Like, do your pitch. Who are you?
I like to call myself a professional idiot because I am. I just like to have a good time. I like to have a laugh. My name is Josh Robinson. I have been a content creator, as much as that word is a bit... What is that word? What does that really mean? I've been doing this for about 7 years now. I started as a little podcast that no one listened to into my Guitar Hero microphone. And all of a sudden... It's a band hero, actually, it was, to be fair. A band hero microphone. USB, straight into the thing, boom. It was good to go.
You had to pump the gain up so hard, they were not built for talking.
God, they weren't. I guess it all just kind of led to me holding a microphone for WWE Superstars, so that's kind of neat. That's how the best way to pitch it now is a little humble brag. But yeah, I like to just have fun. I stream a lot on Twitch. Just like to have a good time, and I'm not really very good at video games, but I sure do try.
Yeah. But that's good, and as I said, like there's a reason that I had to have you on the show. A, because you're my bro, you're my mate, and I appreciate you. But when I think of WWE 2K, you're the face I think of. Whether it be your simulations that you do of pay-per-views, whether it be your universe modes on your YouTube, there's a bunch of different things that you do with these games. So I had to have you come and join us. So we'll set this off at the start as well. Big thank you to the team over at 2K Australia for providing both Josh and myself a copy of the game. So I still remember when I got mine. It was the Thursday after Elimination Chamber. We just got into like the taxi to get to the airport to fly home. Bing! In comes my mobile. I scream in the Uber, and my partner's like, "What the fuck?" I'm like, "Ah!" And then I literally installed it on my PlayStation on my phone so that when I would land, I could just go and mess about with it. So it was the best. But yeah, so let's touch upon like our overall thoughts of this. If you want to talk about your sort of your legacy or experience with the 2K games, because I know your love for wrestling video games goes all the way back. So yeah, lay that down, and I'll do the same, and then we'll get into the nitty and gritty of this.
Yeah, so my first introduction to wrestling was through a video game. WWF Warzone in 1999, I believe, or 98. At least when I first played it, I was a very young kid. My favorite wrestler as a kid, for some reason, through the video games was Goldust. So Goldust was my guy. And then when I actually started to watch wrestling and stuff like that, like a couple years after that, in the Invasion era, for anyone that loves wrestling will know that that's looked at as a pretty poor time in wrestling. But that's when I jumped in, and I've not stopped in 25 years or 24 years, 23 years, whenever that was. But yes, wrestling video games is kind of the core of my love of wrestling. Really, when I break it down, it's what I've seen first. It's what I've always been a creative person, so I would always like kind of just get in my creative brain, and like just my imagination would run wild with wrestling video games. It was my first introduction to wrestling and my first introduction to video games. So I have a lot of love for professional wrestling video games, and I've never missed one since Warzone, I guess you could say. At least in the PlayStation realm, I was always a PlayStation kid. So
good answer.
Yeah. So I had to go to my cousins if I wanted to play a Nintendo wrestling game or anything, or an Xbox or anything like that. So yeah, I just have loved wrestling video games and love wrestling pretty much my entire life.
So I myself, having only got into wrestling in 2018, so I remember playing, I think it was the WF Attitude on PlayStation 1 back 1,000 years ago, but it wasn't until 2018 where I really sort of fell in love with wrestling as a whole, and then stepping into the games themselves. So I've been playing them for what's that, like 6 years now, which is pretty cool. So with that in mind, Josh, having that legacy, that long-term experience with the WWE games in their various iterations, where does 24 sit with you?
It's hard to say because we've had the game for 2 and a bit weeks, like a little bit over. It's hard to say because I always feel like the newness has to wear off before I can really answer that question properly. Not to like not answer your question, but like the newness have to wear off to kind of like see it properly, to be like, okay, is this just new to me or is this really, really great? And there's aspects of that I'm sure we'll get into, of like, I can tell what isn't working, what is working, where they've improved and where they haven't, et cetera, et cetera. But it's hard to like answer that as a full, because it's like the longevity of it. Does it hold over 6 months? Does it hold over 12 months? Does it hold just the next cycle of the game to really kind of ramp it up? I'm a bit weird with video games. Like, I'll play the crap out of a video game and then won't touch it again for months and months and months and months, and then be like, oh, I haven't played this in so long. You know, this is great. So it's probably more of a me thing. But yeah, the longevity of it, and just kind of, can it consistently keep me entertained, I guess, is the way to answer that. But I guess first initial impressions is that it's checking a lot of those boxes.
Yeah, I would completely agree. So, like, at least once again, from my standpoint, coming in and experiencing sort of the worst that WWE games have to offer with 2K20, I look at 24 as almost a revolutionary level of improvement compared to 20. So we all understand what happened with 2K20. For those that don't know, Ukes, the development team behind it, they left midway through development and just kind of went and left and bounced, right? Which left Visual Concepts, the teams that's best known for supporting NBA 2K, had to come in and quickly save it. They were unable to get everything done in time, so they shipped it as the best they could, and the game was fucked. They then left it for a year, returned with 2K23, 22, 23, and then now we're heading into 24. So how I feel about this title is this is Visual Concepts finding they have their footing now. So 2020 was their trial by fire. They blundered it, not within their fault at all. They took that year. 22 was great. 23 was even better. 24 is an improvement on that again. Whether it be individual modes, whether it be the incremental updates, so these new match types, etc. Like, I feel like they nailed the foundation so much that these little updates that they're delivering here is enough. Had this game be 22 and they're only giving us these minor increments, I'd be like, okay, it's probably not as good as I'd think, but collectively, with everything working so well and all these parts coming together, I think this is by far one of the better WWE games that I've experienced. Now, granted, similar to yourself, the newness does play a role here. However, I have I've dove in so hard to 2K23 that I knew coming into this I was probably going to get a kick out of it, because WWE 2K23 was my second most played game of last year. The first one, I think it might be the game that I played the most, because the number one game was Spider-Man 2, and that was my son. So, I each and every week I do my GM mode with my mates, and it's a whole thing. So, like, my investment into the game, into the franchise, is a lot different than it was in previous years. So let's dive into it. Let's get into those little nitty and gritty sort of spaces. We'll break it down to each of its individual modes as well. But let's look at it from sort of that bigger picture, but a little bit deeper. How do you feel this game looks? So with the 2K games, they do go down that more simulation space compared to, say, WWE Battlegrounds or the competitor in AEW Fight Forever. They do try to make them look as real as possible, play as real as possible, somewhat. How do you feel that has come together this year? Like, is the increments still kind of this there?
Yeah, no, I think it looks, I think it's a massive visual there wasn't much of a visual improvement from 22 to 23, in my opinion. But the jump from 23 to 24 is like, obviously you play these games now and you're like, wow, oh my God, look how good Bianca looks, and look how good, whoever looks. It's just like, oh my God. There's things I've noticed with this game, though, especially here, the face, like from chin to head, the facial expressions are just that's a very
from chin to head. So the whole face region.
Sure, the face, as some would say, the face.
Yeah.
From chin to head, the facial expressions are way more animated. I've noticed a lot more of that. I think the overall, you're going to hear me say this a lot, I'm sure you'll probably say this a lot, is the little things about this game. It's the little things that make this game from a good game to a great game. Sometimes it takes you a few times to actually notice the facial expression. You're like, wait, what? Did I just see that right? And stuff like that. Visually, it's packing. The lights are kind of going crazy too. I've noticed shadows are better. Arenas look much more fulfilled. Is that the right? I don't know if that's the right word to use, but things just visually, even if without even touching a control, it's looking pretty schmick, I would say.
I would agree. It's those little accoutrements, right? It's those little things. So as you mentioned, facial expressions are being ramped up in this as well, so that when someone gets a hit, they respond accordingly, or they're being taunted, or they're being shocked or taken aback, their face matches it. And we were talking about this when we went to the hands-on at Elimination Chamber here in Perth. We're discussing the model of Randy Orton and how he just looks immaculate, and even down to his face, but little beads of sweat on him as well. And the Randaddy looks the best he possibly could. And they're those little details, those little things that make it realistic. Though, as I said, the lighting is always a key. If you want a game that looks incredible, you make the lighting work. And especially within the ring, when it's all spotlit, it does look really, really good. And then the shadows match as you step out of the ring and sort of head into the outside areas. But it's the other details as well. So when you go for a spot, let's just say you get someone up on the top turnbuckle, you're about to do a big superplex, the crowd will start flashing as if it's flash photography, and it appears that is responsive to what you are doing. So if you land the sequence, the flashes go harder. If you start, they go. But if it doesn't happen, they still go, but they kind of slow down. So it is kind of like a sort of reactionary setup. It's enough to go, okay. Which is kind of, especially when you're throwing back to the older ways of wrestling with flash photography, doesn't really exist anymore. But it's a nice, cool little feature to experience. And then on top of that, sort of entrances and everything, they look the greatest. The performers, the superstars that are sort of the main eventers, the key faces, they look spectacular. Cody, brilliant. Becky, brilliant. Roman, brilliant. Randy, brilliant. As you go down the card, and there is kind of a I guess degradation, for lack of a better term, is that you start seeing less and less finer detail in the individuals. However, I say that, but even the low rung folk actually look good. So even as much as I love them, all the little jobber, shitty, people that you find in my GM or whatever, the Silence or, Clint McDougal or, Gunther McGurder, even they all look fantastic. So if you're playing...
They look like they fit. They look fit within the roster.
They no longer... even you as your custom character, and we'll get into custom characters and stuff in a bit, but you look like you fit. Normally, most custom characters just look like you're pasted into a background and you stand out because the textures are just horrible and never really fits. But here, I'm finding that seamless connection between them all to be really, really fun, which is nice. But okay, let's move into that. So we know about, you as a custom character coming in, and that's always been a big part of my rise, which is the campaign for these titles. Once again, this year we get two different campaigns. We get Undisputed, which is the male run. Which the storyline heading into that is that Roman Reigns has vacated the WWE Universal Championship. A tournament is to be held, and you, as a lower mid-carder on Raw, is put into a position by William Regal, which I'm so happy to see Regal in this game, by the way. He puts you in this tournament, and chaos ensues. Or there is the Unleashed, which is the female variant, where you, as the captain, you are the head of a promotion that you own called TBD, where you take one of your students, one of your talent, to a WWE tryout. Sure enough, you're there, you're part of it. Next thing you know, you're on WWE television. Career ensues. This is one of the first things that most people tend to go to in these games. You yourself, I know you've done the Undisputed. Have you touched the Unleashed as well?
I've done both. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, what are your thoughts on each of them individually or together? It's up to you. How do you want to talk about them?
Sure. So I played Unleashed first. I was actually, because I always try to like alternate. So like last year I did the men's first, so this year I did the women's first. I don't know why I do things like that. It just makes my brain happier. So I did the women's ones first. I will say I like how different each story was. Like, and even like while the format is very similar, there's like variants of the format that kind of skew, and you only get some versions of this if you play the women's storyline, or some versions if you play the men's storyline. So I like that, and I appreciate how they try to take some risk in that aspect. So you're not playing just like a men's story and a women's story, and it's the same just format, the same formula the whole time through. I do appreciate that. I'll talk about the women's one first. I didn't love the overall story. I found it got a little bit janky in some points, and the way I judge things is that, and this is just a personal thing, the way I judge things is, am I getting sick of playing this? And in times in the women's one, I found the story wasn't structured enough because there was too much of like sprouting off into other things where I'm like, what has this got to do with the overall? Like, I don't think this actually matters to what I'm playing. And I'm not talking about like the little side stories or anything like that. I'm just talking what is like the main story, the main overflowing story in this. And I found the women's one dragged a little, and that's not usually, I'm like, women's story, I don't care about the men's story. But the women's one dragged a little, and it was a little bit too much of like, you're in the indie promotion. Now you're not. Oh, the indie promoter's now angry at you. Like, I feel like we've traveled down this path before in similar stories within my rise or my career or whatever you want to call it, what 2K have called it over the years. But I just feel like it's a little bit too much in that sense. So maybe it's just a me thing and everyone else loved it. That's fine. Overall, I had an okay time with the women's one. It got to where it needed to be in the end. I was like, cool, this is fun. The men's storyline I really liked. Maybe it was a little long, but I would rather it be too long than you don't get enough out of it, and it's just like, well, this is over. This took me 5 minutes to do. So I think the overall thing of what I'm trying to say is I do appreciate how different each one was, and it wasn't just two separate stories, and it was like, I'm playing the men's one, playing the women's one. There were two different things, and you got different experiences out of each one.
I completely agree. And to expand on the different experiences, what I found that, like with the women's and the men's, I found that the men's, so in this case, Undisputed, had the more fantastical elements of the WWE, because it's a very within the world of WWE story, you know, even down to, you know, you've won the belt, like not like they we all understand that wrestling's predetermined, all these things, right? So, like, there is the world of kayfabe. It's that reality between the real world and the wrestling world. I find that the Undisputed lived within heavily in kayfabe, where Unleashed knew what it was and had fun with it because of that. But it sprinkled enough in to have that line blurred in the same way that, you know, I'll touch upon some of the story beats of the initial part, not for major spoilers, obviously. You know, you come in and you've got this from promotion, and you as a character, you have turned down the WWE a number of times because, you know, when you come out of the indies, you go in, they change your name, they change your character, and all the hard work you've put in is suddenly lost. So I do applaud them for sort of being referential in that and having that self-understanding of this is the perception of what happens when you come out of the indies. But even within that story, like, one of the first people you go up against is Shotzi, and her storyline is that you didn't book me, so I'm going to punch you. And that's once again, because it's that blurred line, right? Like, it's the match is real and the story is, like the understanding the booking happens, but it's a whole thing. I really quite dug it from that. But where, as was mentioned with Undisputed, with the whole focus being going after, the big belt, holding it, running through with it, and then, all these things are there to try fuck you, implying that that the wins and losses matter, and it's all this, like, it combines a very different experience for you. And as someone who I completely enjoys and is unapologetically a mark, I love having that sense of disbelief and just falling into the world of wrestling, knowing that it's a whole bunch of nonsense, but I care about their motivations in story. I care about, who they are as characters and what they do and what they feel and how they express themselves. It's that soap opera of WWE that I adore. So having that experience there is fantastic. And as someone that actively works in independent professional wrestling, getting to kind of live a fun part of experience of that in the women's one it's just fun. And nothing beats Ryan Betson being world champion. What can I say? Sure.
I think where I lose my disconnect comes for the exact same reason with different, I just have different thoughts towards it, because the men's story is that, okay, I understand that this is just like, okay, cool, I'm in the world of WWE at the moment, I'm under the TV umbrella, this is all making sense, I'm fighting this okay, cool, I understand the formula there. For the other side of things, I'm like, where it takes me out is that there's too much of that, you're jumping back and forth.
Okay,
it's like,
yeah, now I feel that.
Because like you say about the Shotzi stuff, and the first thing that she wants to do is punch you in the face, and then it's like, but hold on, you're at a WWE tryout. This doesn't make any sense to me, because I know that this wouldn't happen. Not the sense of people not liking each other, but I'm like, you can't go shooting in a tryout match. You know what I mean? And then like that blurs. I won't say too much of the spoilers of the story, but there's like elements of like, I'm like, this is on television, but why? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, because like
I lose myself in it.
Yeah, you're not really booked to win the match, but you win anyway.
Yeah,
and it's like, whoa, that's.
But in the men's side of things, it's like, no, this is like very cookie cutter of like, you're booked to win here. You're not booked. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like you either go completely in that direction or completely in the other. You can't really you can't meet in the middle without it just diluting it a little bit. But that's just for me.
No, I like that. It's cool that the things that like we're acknowledging that the different parts have these things, but like they're good or bad depending. Because it's a very good point. Like trying to follow the kayfabe of the female story is interesting. But yeah. This is up to you. What's the next section, the next mode that we would like to you'd like to discuss?
First, I just want to add something just came to my mind of like when we're talking about the visual aspect of this game. How pretty are the menus in this game? I love the visual aspect of just like, there's something about clicking through menus and everything just flows very nicely. You know what I mean?
Yeah, one of the first things I noticed, was the complete UI upgrades. It looks fantastic. It's smooth. I find it's a lot cleaner. They're using a lot more visual cues rather than written cues, which I like. Just one of those little small details. But because
maybe let's jump into my GM. Maybe.
Oh, no, this is
probably the mode I've played the least in terms of like. I've played enough of it to give my opinion, but I haven't that's a mode that I'll play like in like a month's time, when I'm kind of the game's kind of like died down in the sense of like it's new and stuff, and I can just kind of like spend hours and kind of get lost in it. But from what I've seen, there's a lot of changes in that mode.
Absolutely. So my GM is the mode that I unapologetically care the most about. Because like for whatever reason, the part that makes my brain happy is the bullshit stats and fantasy of my GM. That comes down to like building my own roster and sort of playing against my partner and my housemate, and then like tinkering and working it all out. And, so the major changes within GM mode are kind of few, like there's way more than I originally anticipated. Because up until going hands-on prior to Chamber, nothing was communicated at all about what GM mode was. So the main fundamental changes are there are new shows. You now have ECW as an additional show. You also have new GMs in the likes of Ted DiBiase, Teddy Long, and Paul Heyman. Yes, that's all of them.
Yeah.
And each of them have their own benefits in their power cards, etc. Then on top of that, it has taken a route of essentially like a TRPG, very almost D&D, in that each wrestler has their own character sheet now with a wide range of extra skills and sort of situational moments. In terms of like this person's, they can switch classes, they can do this, they can do that. There's a lot of things that were kind of hidden in the back systems, like, are they a rule breaker? Are they this? Are they that? A lot of that you just had to discover. Same as match specialties as well, where now the match specialty is shown on entry. Not all match types are available to you. It's now hidden, it's now behind sort of unlocks, so you have to go unlock this particular logistics to then be able to get that match type, which completely changes your strategy heading in, because the idea is you go in, you do big honking matches, just huge title matches and Extreme Rules, use a steel cage to bump that rivalry up, use a submission to cancel out a rivalry you didn't want. But when you start, you just have normal tables, Extreme Rules, TLC, you got 4, and you're like, shit. Complete changes it. No longer do you have a complete open draft pool. You have to literally request individuals and go, I'm looking for a male heel who is a cruiser, who has a good promo skill. And it gives it to you. And it all costs like in-game tokens that you earn throughout. It completely changes how you look about it. And of course, there's also new power cards, etc., etc. For me personally, these improvements are fantastic. I love getting into the nitty and gritty of what my GM is, and here I like the fact that it's changed how I think. I like that it's making me actively reconsider how I play with my friends. Like, we previously would kind of go the route of a pacifist, and we wouldn't attack each other with our power cards, but now heading into this one, it's going, hey, you kind of have to. And then on top of that, as MGB in the chat mentions, the trades. We can now trade wrestlers between each other, and that, you can trade for a couple of wrestlers and some cash. So if you have a built-in story in your head, you go, well, okay, well, I kind of want this person, or I need this whatever you want to do. And a small detail is you can pick all the champions at entry rather than just your world champions. So that kind of makes that flow a little bit easier, not having to have qualifier matches and tag team matches at the start. You can go, you're my champ, you're my champ, you're my champ. How about yourself? So you dive into this a little bit later, so you've not touched it, but in your small burst, how you find it?
Yeah. I probably played like 8 weeks of it in total, and that's just against AI. I kind of echo a lot of what you're saying. It changes the way that you kind of the way you approach playing GM mode. I think what I know there is some options you can kind of turn off and on. You can kind of make it easy. You can make it really hard. You can kind of, there's certain little aspects of GM mode you can alter at the start to kind of dictate your experience of like what kind of level you want to play. I wish there was just a toggle to be like complete sandbox versus classic mode.
Yeah. Where
a sandbox is a little bit more of like for people that don't want to play with like talent scouts and people that don't want to play with like too much. I mean, cost is always a big part of, but there should be elements of that you can just kind of go free ball in, and then you can kind of. I wish there was a little bit more of that.
Yeah, like they have that in terms of the classic, as in they have the classic mode where you can have all the match types available to you.
Yeah. But
you still then have to deal with the character stats as well as like the talent scouts, etc. So yeah.
Yeah, so I wish there was a little bit more of that, but that's just very like nitpicky. That's just me being nitpicky to be nitpicky. From what I've played, I've enjoyed it. I I feel like especially last year, more so than the original incarnation in 2K22. Last year I got to the point where I'd played it so many times and I'd played against AI and I'd played against people that I kind of knew the system.
Yep. Yeah.
In terms of like, if I do this, I know this is going to bump this rivalry. This won't injure my person. This will blah, 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 blah. I'll just go and grab a few free agents, blah, and I kind of write it off. With this one, I feel like it's a little bit more complex, where it's a little bit, even if you do play it a lot, it's much harder to learn how it kind of unravels around you, which is good because it actually makes you think. I think out of all the modes in this game, this is the only one where I really have to use my brain in terms of like, okay, like it's less about like playing the actual game. I don't find myself when I'm playing GM mode actually playing many matches. I just simulate everything because I kind of find it more fun that way. So I like that. I like the fact that ECW is in it again this year too. That just adds more to what you can. But more choices.
What is also interesting, because ECW never had a women's championship, you don't have one in GM mode, which is fascinating.
Yeah, but I kind of feel like that. If you pick ECW, it kind of leaves you at a bit of a disadvantage.
However, the power cards are brutal.
Yeah, they are. They're brutal on ECW. Because I picked ECW at the very beginning. I was like, I need women's champions, so I switched. But like I started again. But yeah, so
NXT
I feel like
is always my go-to. Who's you?
I'm usually a SmackDown boy.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know why.
I like the championship match getting a boost with the NXT, so that's always my go-to.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. I've just aesthetically I like blue, so I always just pick SmackDown. And I always, for some reason, I've always been like a person that's like I'm either picking Stephanie usually, or lately I've just been like I'm just going to be Eric Bischoff because he's kind of a piece of crap and I'm kind of.
Everyone like it's well acknowledged your little crush on Eric Bischoff, and
he is a silver fox. Okay, Grandpa can get it. Like good for him at like what is he like 104 these days? How old is this man? But like good for him. You know what I mean? Like if you're gonna be that age, at least look okay. You know what I mean? So and he'd be pretty rich. So that's. Very attractive. Anyway, so love about my dating profile.
Eric Bischoff, if you're watching this by any chance, why?
Hit a brother.
Thank you. Josh, check him out.
I'll happily, whatever, do whatever. So my GM though, in overall, it's the mode I've attacked the least. But the changes are enough to change enough to like keep me interested, because you look at any game ever, if you do the same, especially a sports game that comes out if you want to call this a sports game, but a sports game that comes out every single year, you do the same thing, no matter how great it is, it can get tiresome. Yeah. And you're just like, well, I've done this. Why am I, in theory, spending money, to play this game if it's just going to be the thing that I had last year? Which, again, I'll probably get into later of, like, my overall kind of thoughts on 2K in general doing WWE games, but it's just, there needs to be enough change without taking away from what you love about the mode to keep you invested.
And you brought up some really good points there as well around the, what's the expression? Easy to play, hard to master. And I feel that you can go into the GM mode and play it and be fine and have a good go at it, but like if you choose to go that extra step and really just like smash it and get nerdy about it, you will going to have like the best experience. Because similar to yourself, we played so much my GM last year that we knew the beats, we knew what you needed to do to succeed, where now it's actively reconsidering things. Look, I would agree that this is a sports game, because there's a lot of the themes within it is quite sportsing, including the principle of sports-related trading card games. So continuing in this year is the My Faction mode, which I have admittedly never touched until 3 days before 24 came out, because I was like, I'm going to check it out in 23 because it's all going to be useless in 3 days anyway. If I bugger it up, who cares? And then I go in there and I start opening packets. I'm like, oh no, I'm getting like a mental erection out of this. This is not good. Oh no. And then I get in 24 and I'm opening more packets. And then I'm doing and then there's all the challenge trees and the towers, and I'm like, okay. And then you find out you've got to go in and actively wrestle the matches to get the results. I'm like, oh, this is combining a bunch of modes. I thought it was just going to be like trading cards. This is getting better. And sure enough, every day I'm in there getting my dailies, doing my weeklies, and like it's consumed me completely, and I had no idea it was going to happen.
Yeah, my faction is I did not touch it in 22. Didn't have any. I was like, this is a Pokemon card game. I don't really care for this too much. It just wasn't my vibe. I maybe opened it in 22 maybe 3 times, and I was like, what is this? This is 4-on-4 matches at that stage. I was like, this isn't for me. 23, I dabbled it in a little bit more. I'm like, I can at least understood last year why people were like, there's some people within this community, in the 2K community, that they don't do anything but my faction.
Yeah, so big shout out to like Deej and Bullfrog and like, because I have been actively like consuming their things to just try understand it more. Because I'm like, I'm not seem to be getting enough cards that I want. But I want to open more cards. How do I get more credits? And these guys nailing it in their content. Be sure to go check them out, by the way.
Yeah, please do. There's people that just do that. I was not one of those people. But I at least understood why someone would. Then this year I was kind of like, let's just have a little bit more of like an actual attempt at like seeing if I could get into this. And I'm kind of probably just a little bit behind you in the sense of like, I'm at least logging into it every day to get my dailies and stuff like that. But I still probably haven't explored enough, but I can see myself getting lost in that. That's probably another thing in a few months' time when I'm not playing the game every single day, to be like, oh, I could lose myself in a few hours, because I found myself like just grinding a lot of the stuff in my faction and just having music on and just kind of like, it's kind of like mindless. I'm just like, yeah, I know what I'm doing, but also I like my mind's in other places and it didn't really necessarily like matter. And it felt like I was just like earning coins and I was like getting new cards and I was like, oh, this does this does this. And it was just kind of like, oh, I've just spent 3 hours on this game and I didn't even realize, you know what I mean? So that's kind of fun with my faction, and I can see myself doing that a lot more this year. They've put a lot of effort into this mode, because you look at my team in NBA. I don't know if you're an NBA 2K player, but I am.
Not.
I am. My team is, how do I describe it in a word? It's just a juggernaut for NBA 2K, like in the sense of just like people being in that zone. And I can see my faction, they're really trying to make that WWE's version of my team. That was always the kind of concept, I'm sure, but they just couldn't find the right formula, because we talk about a lot of WWE 2K being a sports game, but it's hard with wrestling, because yes, it is. I know the coin like sports entertainment, but it's hard to be a complete sports game, because it is, but it isn't. Like, there's just, wrestling is its own bubble. It's not NBA. It's not basketball. So it can use elements of it, but it has to have its own spin. And I feel like with this version of my faction, they finally kind of at least found the formula that is going to work. There's enough difference with different things within the mode. You know, like I said, in 2K22, it was just 4-on-4 matches of your faction, and it was just like, this isn't, you know, tag matches in wrestling games are awful in my opinion.
Well, we'll get into those little things a bit later.
Sure.
Match types and like throwing things, because I know you. But
oh my god.
Yeah, like there's all those things about my factions, because now that I've experienced it here and I'm loving it. So I've just been provided a code for MLB The Show, because I'm a old school baseball fan from like a decade ago, and they have Diamond Dynasty, which is their version of this, or their version of Ultimate Team if you play FIFA. And I'm like, oh, because so to credit to WWE and the 2K games, it's made me love, in the same way that wrestling made me understand sports, because I grew up not being a big sports kid. I just couldn't get it. I just couldn't understand like, why the fuck do people know these players, and who cares? But now that I'm like, oh, I know that wrestler, I know that, and I know their story, and blah, 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 and I understand how sports work. So now I'm like, oh, maybe if I take that knowledge to, Diamond Dynasty, or, I'm not going to go play FIFA, but I'm like, okay, cool. So I like that as a concept as well. And the only downside that I'm feeling is I'm finding it hard to get the internal reward, like the internal rewards within it, to not spend money. Which is a challenge. So if 2K, hi, if you're watching, appreciate it. Super keen to mess with my faction. Can I get some VC, please? I'll do streams. I'll just do unboxings. I don't give a shit. Like, you just see a giant ADHD nerd get really excited at opening packets. Like, please, I'd much appreciate it. Because, like, that's what I want to do. I just want to fucking open packets. And then I'll play the game as well, I suppose. But yeah, like I'm finding that the reward is not quite there. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not accruing enough my faction points or the WWE points, because even when I was playing 2K23, like I said, a couple of days before 24, I'm finding that I'm just accruing WWE points like left, right. I've had like 30, 40, 50, 60. Like, no, I have 8. I play daily. I have 8. You know what I mean?
It leaves you in the... I find myself saying this a lot with my faction, and why I can't fully just jump into it is because I always question myself. I'm like, what am I doing wrong here?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I'm doing everything that it says, but I'm not really getting a lot of, like you're saying, like a lot of benefit for what I'm doing outside of just like the huge. So like, it is a little bit more of like, what is my motivation here to do all these little objectives if I'm not really reaping a hell of a lot of reward out of it? So that's probably the biggest reason why I personally can't dive into it too much. But it's been a lot more in these last 2 weeks that I've had the game than the previous two versions of my faction before. So, I mean, it's probably doing its job of just getting me there.
Because as I mentioned, like, because the problem that I have is that, because, ADHD, poor impulse control, modes like this are built to exploit individuals like me. So, like, I have to do everything within my power to not do it. Sorry, it's a whole power to me. But one of the other big things that this game heavily had promoted, and which has me really excited actually, because as the new DLC comes out in a month or so, 40 years of WrestleMania is the big part of the showcase mode. Now, granted, you're not playing all 40 WrestleManias, because dear God, would that be a lot of hours. They do kind of pick a selected sort of real prominent and pivotal matches, but not all the most prominent ones, because they've all been played in previous WWE games before. How have you found the showcase mode? Because I personally haven't really jumped into it because I'm too busy playing my faction and GM.
Okay, buckle up.
Oh, go ahead. Just go.
So 2K14, 10 years ago, did 30 years of WrestleMania. They did a match or 2, sometimes 3, from every single WrestleMania up to from 1 through 29. Was splendid. They did in WWE 13, they did the Attitude Era mode. It was wonderful. Everyone was loving it. Then you fast forward all these years and they start doing showcase mode. And in these last few years, they've started to really...
It was more of an individual career. Like, so it was Rey Mysterio in 22, John Cena was last year, and then, so, like, I really enjoyed the John Cena run. That was fun.
Here's my biggest takeaway from showcase mode now versus then. Showcase mode, even like 2K15 and 2K16, like, looking at 2K15, they did, like, rivalries, and they did, like, different things, like, they did Shawn and Triple H, and they did Punk and Cena, and blah, blah, blah. Austin, they did in 2K16, and whatever. The biggest thing that I think takes me away from Showcase is that it uses real life footage, and I don't like that because I'm playing a video game. Animate it. You used to do it, and it used to be amazing. It was the best thing. I've played WWE 13's Attitude Era mode so many times over because they animate all the things that I loved as a kid, and it looks phenomenal. I'm like, I'm seeing this in a video game. That's what I want from Showcase mode. If they're going to do this, like, you're reliving history, show me to it in video game eyes, because that's how I want to see the cutscenes made. And as a streamer boy, it's the worst thing in the world to have real life footage, because I can't stream that shit. I hate being this person as a streamer person now, but I like to have fun, but I can't monetize.
Yeah, so you're even part, like, because you yourself, you are part of 2K's Next Makers, so you do have, like, the extra, like, you know, exceptions to the rules when it comes to streaming, and even then you still get spiked.
They always say that you're going to be whitelisted and it never happens. So I'll just leave it at that. But that's coming from people of, like, within, like, you look at, like, New Legacy, who like they
won't touch it. Yeah.
They can't really do too much with it because they know that they're going to get spiked. They're going to lose something will happen like that. It's just a little bit of if I hadn't seen them animated in the past, I know THQ and stuff did it, and then 2K did it in 2K15 and that. I understand like the video packages in between, sure, but when I'm playing the match, I don't want to edge out of real life to game stuff. I want to see 2K animate all this because it's more fun to me because it's like reliving it in a different way. Otherwise, I could just load up Binge and just watch these matches.
Well, you know, I understand that. Like, I certainly see and appreciate what they're attempting to do, and like, we're having moments that transitions. It's showing that you are remaking history. You are working within the confines of what's happened before, and that's cool. However, the challenge that you have is unless the game looks immaculate, the transition to the real world, you go, ooh. Like, as much as I love the trailers and they've used, and even that new one where it's like, you know, Roman tackles the camera and it's like it's you, and you see Taker and you see Hogan and you see Stone Cold, and you're like, you have weird uncanny faces, and you just kind of see that brought to the forefront. Like that uncanny valley becomes really prominent when you do those transitions. So back in the day, it would make more sense to have it all be animated because the discrepancy between those two, the juxtaposition is so large that it would actually take you out of it. But because that's what you've experienced and what you know, having it be seamless is actually more odd, it's interesting. It's like we've passed that precipice, you know. It's very, yeah, it's cool.
It's just more so like I know we might not necessarily. I mean, we're not I'm not a casual viewer of professional wrestling. I watch a lot of it. I consume so much of it that I'm just like, I've watched all these matches so many times over that I can just do this in my spare time when I'm sitting on my couch or whatever and watch these matches. If I want to play a video game, I want to see stuff that I haven't necessarily seen before or like seen animated before. It'd be like cool to see like the Firefly Funhouse match animated because like, I mean, I don't hate it. It didn't but it just gets me to the point of like, well, I'm not seeing anything that I haven't seen before. So it's just more of the grind with everything of just getting through it. I mean, a lot of these like objective based things where it's like, do a heavy combo, do this. Like at least my reward for when I was playing those kind of things in 2K14 or 2K15 was, okay, I'm going to see a cool cutscene out of this. Now it's just like, now I'm just seeing bits of the match that I'm probably just going to skip anyway.
Yeah.
Because I've seen this before.
So they have incentivized it in some way. So if you do play the showcase, you do get access to particular cards that you can take to My Faction, and then My Faction also has like cards that you unlock things in the creator mode. And, you know, there's all like, they have done attempted to seamlessly connect them all and reward you for going into one zone. Because before the show, we were talking Call of Duty for whatever reason. And one of the challenges that Call of Duty has is that people buy it and they just play the multiplayer. And they never touch the campaign, or they touch the campaign and never touch the multiplayer. So this is actually a really little smart thing to sort of have you dip your toes into every mode and really try it out. Like, I haven't played the showcase yet because for me, I want to sit down and I want to give it time. Because I know it's going to be a bit of a run, and I don't want to like jump in and then jump out because I know if I jump out, I'm going to go back. So like, I want to like properly do it because I want those cards. Like, they've done me. They've hooked me on the cards. You know, so saying that though, like, you know, I can't just sit down and run through Universe any time. One thing I did do though was spend an unreasonable amount of time in the custom creation. Like, we made myself, my partner, my mate, because, you know, a good friend of the show, Mad Dog, who runs TCW, Twitch Championship Wrestling, you know, it's a E-Fed where we use, you know, CAWs to sort of tell these, you know, fun, silly stories. one of the first things we did was make us. And I really feel that the suite here, although predominantly the same, I'm finding that I'm getting better at it, which is very likely. I am finding that I'm able to create higher fidelity characters, and like hair physics is better, which is brilliant. So like having long hair is no longer going to impact you, and it's not going to get all weirdly tentacly. Like they still, depending on what you're wearing, there may still be clipping if you're wearing a belt, but these are things that they just can't accommodate for in every possible way. But I am really finding that the suite here is just better. I'm finding a lot more fun with the nuances. But if you were to look at it from a surface level, it appears near identically. Have you messed with it at all?
Outside of my rise, I'm not a person that like I download crap because I'm just like people are better at me, because I'm all about, like, especially with the simulation stuff that I do on stream, I like to have everyone's look be as current and as is just up to date as possible. So I download a lot of stuff, but on a surface level, I don't really see too much different outside of the creation bit. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because
it means
it's pretty in depth. Yeah, and it's pretty in depth. But that's not to say that I haven't tinkered around with some things and just kind of been a bit of a dick about things and just been like, let's just throw things together, because I like to I like to click on everything and have a look within my first couple of weeks of a game. So like I go into my create an arena and blah 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 and just have a little tinker around. But yeah, I'm more of a downloader of things. I'm like, oh, let's look for that new Dakota Kai attire, and then I download that. And
shout out to some of the people within the CAW community, by the way. Their speed and ability to drop incredible.
Like, some people will be on like Raw, and then an hour later they'll have that attire done in detail for you to download. You're like, how is that possible? They were just wrestling an hour ago, and this is the first time they've ever wore this, and now it's just in there. It's like, whoa.
So good.
Shout out to all those people, because you make my life a hell of a lot easier, because when these games, SmackDown vs. Raw 2010 was the first one where you could edit in-game superstars, and that was just colors of their attire. I used to sit down for hours and hours and hours and be like, they need a purple one, they need a blue one, they need a black and white one. And I used to spend on every single person in that game. I used to just do it, just different colors for, and then it obviously expanded to like, you can now change like virtually everything about in-game characters, which is cool. But I don't do any of that anymore, because I'm like, I'm just going to search this on community creations and just download it, because I'm lazy. But that's a beauty about this game. And the best thing they ever did was a couple years ago make this cross-play in terms of like creation. So like you can get stuff from PC and from Xbox or whatever your platform is, you can kind of just download it from. It makes it a hell of a lot better for creators, because it can just be virtually anywhere between the systems. So that's kind of like, it's pretty cool. But yeah, the creation suite in these games are like, I feel like a lot of people complain about it because it's like, you can only have this many and only have this many things, but it's pretty in depth when you look at a lot of creation suites in virtually any other sports game. It is not as in depth as wrestling is 3-4 times as more just ability to do crap than any other sports game, including like stuff like NBA and stuff like that. So, props to them.
I could speak to this like, as a legitimacy, like wrestlers that I know and work with, they have built their gear in 2K. I myself, because I work in the side, I do commentary for a bunch of different promotions. I use the back end of 2K to learn moves, to learn the names of things, because it is so granularly detailed. I'm like, okay, so I saw that move. That looks like an arm drag, but like it's tweaked a little bit. Like, okay, oh, that's what it is. Okay, cool. Or like because I love a DDT. I love a good DDT, like something crazy. So I'm like, see me all those little variants of DDTs. I'm like, ooh, it's like it's all that stuff that I get a little nerdy about and have fun with. But you mentioned arenas. Custom arenas are like jacked to 10. Like you can like move rather than just being like, you must use Tron here, thing here. You can be like, I'm going to move the Tron up high. I'm going to do this. I'm going to bring back the SmackDown fist. You have a complete freedom in not relatively complete freedom with what you're making, and a huge win if you're an arena creator. The only other the only other mode we haven't touched upon yet is universe mode, where you sort of run your own thing. Have you do you mess with it too much?
This is my domain, is universe mode. This mode
so
needs
you might
to be
have some
taken.
things to say about it.
They need to take this mode and they need to put it in the bin and then just start again. This mode has been. I don't get angry about anything ever because I'm just like, whatever, just enjoy what you enjoy. Work with it what you can. This mode is so broken. Everything that you try to do in universe leads to something else not working properly. This isn't a mode that you just like, they need to tweak. No, it needs to be either completely stripped down to bare bones and just start again, or they need to scrap universe and make something of their own. Because, universe has been in these games since SmackDown vs. Raw 2011. And I do many streams on old wrestling games. It's where my bread and butter is. WWE 12's universe mode is golden. It's the greatest thing in the world. I couldn't think of any other better universe mode than that. But it just slowly, things get added year to year to year that breaks other things. And then it breaks this, and then this breaks this, and then this breaks this. And then before you know it, you've got a mode that just does not work the way you want it. Because, okay, so I guess the difference for me when you're talking about my GM of being that strategic kind of thinker and being I like seeing what match. For me, I'm the opposite. I like using my creative brain to be I want to make my own world that looks like WWE television, but it's my life. I want to put Chelsea Green on Raw, and I want to put this person on SmackDown. I want to add in NXT. I want to do all these things, and I want it just to be a complete sandbox of just the world is my oyster. Yeah. Let me just run it the way I want to run it. But universe mode just does not work like that anymore. It needs to be, again, just you need to chew it up and spit it out, because this thing is just, it is not good. It is just, I want it to work so badly. So badly. The fundamentals of that mode is, I will argue with anybody that the fundamentals of that mode is better than anything else in this game, or anything else in any wrestling game since universe mode's conception. Universe is the most fun you can have with a wrestling game, and it just isn't, it's just not that anymore, and it hasn't been like that for a very long time. It's just, no matter what you do in this thing, it's just, every time you think there's a workaround, which you shouldn't be doing in a game anyway, something else is broken. Yeah. It's just, it's not what it used to be, but it has potential to be that. It just needs to be violently fixed, because I love it. I could stream universe mode, and that's the only thing that I'll do as content in WWE games forever, and I would be very happy. But I can't, because there's only so much I can do with just being why is this doing this? Why isn't this rivalry working to make it a title match? Why is this title match going on here? At the patch that just came out for this game today, there's a whole broken thing in universe that makes universe cards 27 matches long. Why?
Jesus,
that's what I mean.
That's longer than Mania. That's
the fundamentals of this mode is so good, but it's just so broken that you can't even see the surface of what this mode was even trying to aspire to be. Because it's just for someone that has a creative brain that just wants to dive into that. I could spend so many days just getting lost in that, and I want it to work so bad. It just doesn't work.
that is a big time shame, because as MGB in the chat here says, I'm terrified for when I restart my universe mode, and that's not something you should be having when you're heading into a game. I'm terrified that this won't work, and I will lose everything. And granted, even in the creation, so it's not my housemate was making their character, because we play with custom characters in GM, so that we all have the same starting cards, and it's just fun to watch us talk to Triple H and whatnot. And they got 90% through their creation, and then game just crashed and lost all of it. So with Universe, the amount of time and effort that you alone put into it, to have to lose that would be pretty painful.
Yeah, and so for me, I was all right, I know what Universe is going to be this year. I understand that it's probably not going to have too much love. It's kind of the forgotten middle child of this game, or of these games. I I still went in with like, let's see what I can make work. Let's see what I can do to like have some fun with this. And I streamed it a few times and stuff like that. And I'm like, every time I play it, I'm just like, I can see the way you wanted this to work, but it just doesn't this way. I even like I have like a universe on stream versus universe off stream, and I try to do my own things. I was like drafting, and I can get into that kind of creative brain, and then you do it all, and you're like, okay, this is all set up, and then you go to do it, and I'm like, none of this matters because it's not even registering where I'm putting people. So like, it's just so broken.
Like fundamentally broken.
It's just the core of it no longer works because they tried to just, instead of adding things and taking things away to make sure that thing works, they just kept adding layers and layers and layers and layers and layers and layers on top of it to the point where none of it works, even the new fancy stuff that they want to try and do. So it doesn't, it's not to the point of like, this mode needs to be fixed. It's like, no, this mode needs to be completely scrapped. And like, what are the core things you want here? Like my GM in 2K22 was pretty bare bones in the terms of everything. It was bare bones. That's what Universe needs to be.
Okay.
Make the elements of it that are fun, really fun, and then build on that. I think what I was alluding to before when I was going to say like an overall kind of thought of these games is that I don't think these should be a yearly game. I think you should have this game come out every second year and have patches and build upon with new characters. And
they need to.
I think they need to because I think that way you could actually build something and make it work. But I know that's not ever going to be a thing because that's just not how 2K operates.
Like I agree with you, right? I believe that it should be a platform. You have WWE 2K. That is your platform. They release it once, and then every year they go. This is, well, as Reverend Puck in the chat mentioned, it's what AEW was trying to do with Fight Forever, is that you go, here's the platform, and every year you get, you pay the same as you would for the retail, it's like $60. You get roster updates, you get new skins, you get, it does bring on the same concern that like Destiny has, in that like the more you add, the bigger the game gets, the file size gets, and you're kind of fucked. But like the incremental change that they have is it's worth doing it this way. Just build it, and then rather than having to ship a whole game, you can really nail down on the smaller parts and just patch it in. In the same way that, World of Warcraft, they did this. They had their original version, and then 3, I think it was around the Lich King, or the Panda one, they went, hey, there's the update, everything's been reskinned, we've changed the physics, we've changed the character models, enjoy. Like, you can, Burning Crusade, thank you, Max. Whatever it was, I don't care, wow. Like, that's the principle. They went in and they went, here's everything, we've changed it. Cool, have fun. Always Cataclysm. Thanks, Max, for correcting me and then being wrong. I appreciate it. So he's my co-host. I'm allowed to shit on him. He doesn't.
I know.
He doesn't like wrestling, so fuck him. But it's and the beauty of those is you could drop those little things in, like new match types. You can update, like say when Raw or SmackDown change their set, you get it. Rather than, I can remember when 2K20 came out, like no shit, like a month before. Raw
they changed everything.
Everything.
They changed 2K20, by the way. I know we crap on that game a lot, and rightfully so. It's a fucking thunderstorm of a mess. But that game was the funnest year that I ever had streaming because for me, I love just being an idiot. That game was such a mess that it was hilarious.
Nothing beats powerbombing someone and they just go into the abyss and you can't
it's the
pin,
best.
or they just exist somewhere down there.
It was just so painfully bad that I was just like, there's no alternative here because nothing works. So this is just fun. Like the hair would go all mucked up and stuff. It was just the best year that I ever had streaming. Like honestly, I'm so grateful for that game because, my God, a lot more people saw my shit in that year just because they're just like, what is going on?
Yes, because you're watching this and you're like dying with laughter. Because even semi-recently, I jumped onto your Twitch stream and then all I hear is you cackling.
Yeah, and I nearly shat myself.
And that is because of the new inclusions that have come this year, and the one that got you, and then they got me giggling too. And then when I'm playing it, I can't help but do it either, is we have new weapons and you can throw them at people.
stupid. It's just something that's like, why wasn't this always in wrestling games? Because I'm like, there is nothing more satisfying to me than a character running up to me and I throw a chair and it goes dunk and they just fall. And there's just something so fun about that. Like the other day, someone was reaching for a title on the ladder and I had a trash can and I just threw it and they just went I've literally, like streams you're alluding to, I've had whole streams where all I've done the entire match is throw weapons, and there's not one time where I didn't cackle die laughing, because it's never not funny. It is like, again, the small things of this game, like, that sounds so minuscule, just in the grand, we just talk about modes and all these grandiose things that all been added. Throwing weapons is just like, it is 1 or 1A of like the best thing about this game for me. It's just like so stupid. It's just so fun. It just, again, a lot of people with wrestling games want arcade. A lot of people are just like, let's make it as just video game like as possible. That's not me. I'm a simulation guy.
The thing is, they did that with Battlegrounds, and it sold shit, and no one wanted to play it. So that's not the answer. This is the thing. Everyone thinks they know what they want when they really don't. So like,
I agree. I'm a simulation guy anyway.
Same.
But there's elements of arcade wrestling games that it's still a video game.
Yes.
As much as it needs to be simulation, and I completely agree, we need to mimic what we see on television, it's still a video game. There still needs to be aspects of just having a laugh and just having fun, especially with friends. Throwing weapons at your friends while you're playing this game, there is no greater feeling. There is no greater feeling than throwing a trash can at someone's head. It makes me truly
that clip that was getting the rounds on Twitter, which was Piper Niven yeeting that trash can and hitting Isla Dawn, and Cheese just gets whiplashed. I cried laughing because
the best.
It was just like she crumpled like immediately. This game's amazing.
It's so good, but it's the little things in this game that just make it so much fun. And then I guess the only other thing that I really need to add about this game is just how much fun I have with gauntlets.
I was going to say, the additions there are the gauntlets, we've got the ambulance matches and the casket matches.
Which are the same.
Yeah, and that's why they're similar. Like, they released them too because at their core, they're the same of you put thing there, you do a lot of button mashing, and then you do a QTE, and then you win, or you don't. Like, they're the same principle.
And they piss me off.
Yeah.
Because I'm so bad at them. I just lose all the time in these damn matches. There's an ambulance match in one of the Myrises that drove me to my core of insanity of trying to get past it. And I'm just like, why do I have to do 8 tries and I'm still here trying to figure out this? But gauntlet matches, God.
The fun about a gauntlet is, you just get a bunch of people running in, and then now that you can, switch the camera to be an aisle, to down the runway.
Ramp cameras, again, little things. It's like, thank you.
So previously, like when, we would simulate the Royal Rumble, because back in my days, do the same simulation streams. Think about doing them again because they're fun.
Fun.
But, you do a Rumble, and then you go, music, and then they just kind of appear. And it's not very fun. And the best part of a Rumble is seeing them kind of come in. So be able to go, and then
all the graphics are on the screen, and just looks cool. And it's just like, again, the little things of this game, like something as simple as just switching up a camera angle is just like, it makes you feel nostalgic because of old Here Comes the Pain angles and all of the old games and all of that. But it just adds to the experience. Like, I can't wait to do a simulation stream in a Rumble and have that camera and be like, I can see who's running out here, and stuff like that. But gauntlets are so fun. The gauntlet eliminator stuff is like the greatest thing ever because it's essentially just a Rumble with pinfalls and submissions. And again, that sounds so tiny, and it's like, what? But it's just so fun. You put Falls Count Anywhere on there and you just watch the chaos unfold. It's just elements of this game that I'm like, that's replay value for me. It's not just like, okay, I've done my rise, I've kind of stretched thin with my GM, like what else is there to do? Like that, there's an element of that of like Gauntlet Turmoils is like basically a slobber knocker mode for all the people that played old wrestling games. I can just keep coming back to that.
Yeah, and then on top of that as well, so you do have those match types where you can properly wreck each other. And as someone who weirdly getting into independent wrestling was through deathmatch. So be able to like, you know, people get color and then they it stays and then the mat gets fucked up. And I'm like, oh, like it's so good. Like to sort of, you know, as you said, you launch a chair at someone, they get cut up, they start pissing, and then you can like see that trail of destruction. So I'm a firm believer in that when done right, blood can really amplify a wrestling story. So be able to do that here, and then you see it sort of, and if you want that real sort of just like fucking brutal blood feud of a match, if you're doing war games or something, right? And you're seeing that and you're getting that, like that's that extra level of immersion that it's kind of lost. Excuse me. So that in of itself is extradition. Is there? I think that's kind of all the boxes that we had that I had written down. Is there anything that we're missing? Are there any questions in the chat about this? Like, so to touch upon your final thoughts, and we'll answer any questions that come through.
It's just the little things of this game that make it a good. It makes it go from a good game to a great game. Yeah. I do really think this is a great game. Because I feel like I always go, it's easy just to say that to you right now because we're talking about it. I'm like, oh yeah. But like the initial reaction to me is when someone asks me, oh, what's the game like? I'm like, no, it's really fun. Like it genuinely is really fun. And I think any video game, at the end of the day, as long as you're having fun with it, then it's done its job. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't necessarily mean it's not perfect. There's many flaws and that's fine. No game is perfect anymore. Just the world we live in. We have patches and stuff like that. That's the beauty of the world, I guess, in a sense. But it comes with it. Wrestling games are fundamentally always a little bit broken, though. They always have been. There's always been things in wrestling games that are just a little bit off for whatever reason. But this game is fun. Like, it's a nice feeling. I feel like this is the first wrestling game in quite a while where I can have people inside of my house and give them a control and kind of be like, let's just play the game. And it's fun. You're having a cackle, you're having a laugh. That's how I judge it. So I think this is it gets 5 ticks from me and just doing what it needs to do. Yeah, look, and I'm in a similar boat. Like, I do believe this game is fantastic. And a lot of that is I'm very aware that that's me looking at it with my rose-tinted glasses, right? In that the modes that I enjoy, the things that I love about these games, they have delivered. GM delivered. Like My Rise delivered. My new love for factions, I feel they've delivered, except within the currency side, like rebalancing that would be cool. I don't touch Universe, so all the complaints that you've mentioned, all the criticisms you mentioned, not complaints, I should say, because they are criticisms, not complaints. Those criticisms that you've highlighted, they don't resonate with me because I don't know them. But like the things that I love is that the GM, its improvements, its changes really has me reconsidering how to play it, but in like a fun way. Like I love getting like that, you know, when you think you're comfortable, you get pushed and you go, ooh, that's rad. You know, and then factions, all these different little things that I'm absolutely loving with this game. And knowing full well that, you know, as my love of wrestling has gotten bigger and bigger as the years have gone on, which is awesome. There's very few things in my life that I've loved more as I've gone along, except for like my son and wrestling and PlayStation, I guess. It's kind of like about it, really. I'm my partner, I suppose. I guess so. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, she's right. Yeah, she's fine. She enjoys wrestling, so she's pretty cool. Then you got a winner. Yeah, big time. Our first ever date was to a deathmatch show. It was great. Oh, fantastic. Oh, so she knew what she was getting into. You know, and like those things, like the greater experience of the WWE games is what hits me here. It's what I love about it. Like I get to share it with my partner, share it with my housemate, share it with my friend. Like one of my true highlights of my week is every Thursday we come in, we make dinner together, we all sit around the table, and then we play GM for like 4 hours. And then we play character, like we'll cut promos on each other while we're trying to book it, you know, we're trying to like, but we're also like helping each other. And then we have our own little plastic belts just to sort of add to the fun, depending on what, you know, variant of the four of us that we have. So I finished last season 2K23 as both the United States and the Intercontinental Champion, because that's, you know, the US is myself, my housemate, and my friend, where the Intercontinental is myself, my mate,
and my partner, and then we have the world title, which is for all four of us to get. Well, we get real nerdy about it, and
Hell yeah!
It makes it fun because, like, yeah, then then we start sharing photos with each other of the belt. We're taking the belt down the shops. We're wearing it's sitting lovely on our table. And in the true rules of wrestling, you don't touch it. If you touch it and it's not yours, that's bad luck. That's bad juju. So
I need to move to Melbourne. Like, I need to get my ass out of Adelaide.
Dude, if you ever relocate to Melbourne or the Geelong region, you are part of our GM. It's happening. And those little parts are fun. So it's the greater experience that I'm aware that amplifies my love for this game. But I truly think it's fantastic.
But that's like, I know you're trying to wrap up, but that's like,
I could talk forever.
You have a base for that though. The base of the core of that game is like it has to be fun in order for you to do all this extra shit. You know what I mean? Like to do all that, it has to be something there. So it speaks a lot to the game allowing you to do all this crap because it's worth it. But
you're actually spot on. So I myself, I've been working in games media for the better part of a decade, right? So I'm in a very luxury and position where I have new games coming at me all the time. Like right now, I'm reviewing and playing 4 games. Yet I still these are all games that are like coming out next week, the week after. It's condensed. Yet I still always make sure I have time for WWE.
Yeah, exactly. So it has to say something to the game of being fun and just like you said you look forward to Thursday nights because like that's just something that the game has to be fun. It's not like you're looking forward to playing like Tekken every Thursday night. Yeah. Shout out to Tekken, by the way.
Tekken's great. Tekken 8, fantastic, by the way. Go check it out.
I haven't played it yet. I want to play it so bad.
The story's still batshit, but the game looks incredible. It's fantastic.
That's Tekken in a nutshell, and I just want to hear that funky Japanese techno music. Give it to me. Inject it in him. Tekken 2 is my favorite game ever.
Really?
Mm-hmm, on the PlayStation 1. Me, my dad, and my brother used to play it. And I still play as the same character to this very day. Shout out to Nina Williams. She's my girl.
See, I'm like, I know we're derailing from WWE, but I'm Eddie Gordo.
You're that.
No, but I've sussed him out. Like, I've not just spammy buttons. I've actually worked him out since Tekken 3. So knowing that he's the first DLC of the upcoming season pass, yes. But also King. I appreciate King a lot more as well.
King's a pro wrestler. He does suplexes all day. Come on.
So good. So getting those little combos together. But some of the questions that did pop up in the chat. What bugs have you guys experienced so far? Because I've seen a fair share. So MGB in the chat mentioned earlier that during their Universe EFED, they did a steel cage match followed by an ambulance match, and something fucked up, and next thing you know, they're having an ambulance steel cage match.
Fantastic.
Or they're having tables matches that are ending in pinfalls and submissions, not going through tables. So the only major glitches, little hiccups that I've had is I was playing Faction, I was Bron Breaker, and I clotheslined Grayson Waller, and he landed on his back, and then there was a collision issue, and then he just fucking flipped for a bunch.
That happens all the time to me. Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, and that's
I like that shit though. That's funny to me.
I instantly recorded. I'm like, that's incredible. Yes.
Yeah, just like that stuff is funny to me. Where I'm like, I don't really care. I guess just. Other than just Universe, just not working.
Grayson Waller, amazing seller, says Punk. He sold it like he was going to die. It was the best.
Fantastic. I think for me, like, the main things that I've had, weirdly enough, is, like, when you download custom attires for people and then set it to people, sometimes so, for example, the first attire that I got was for Chelsea Green, and underneath her in the list... there. No surprises. She's my favorite wrestler ever on Get Off Me. She's the best. The more she loses, the more she wins.
That's the best. No, you're absolutely correct.
She's the best. But in her list, there's like near her is like Charlotte. I think Charlotte might be immediately above her on the list, right? So for some reason, when Charlotte now wins a match, Chelsea Green's music just plays. And I don't know why. And it's only since I've got that custom attire for her. So, for some reason, Charlotte Flair wins and it's just what the hell.
When you have a game that's this expanded and this like so much multi-layered, it's the same way that in Fallout New Vegas, if you approached a particular NPC wearing a particular hat, the game just fucking dies and there's nothing you can do about it. And it's the same thing here. Apparently, like if you have you might have this particular like pair of pants that break the game. And because you can't QA everything. It's physically impossible.
It's not. When people are like, oh, why can't they test that? I'm like, because how do you... There's some things that you just truly do not know that are going to happen until it happens. Now, I will say one thing about this game. I haven't had this game crash at all.
I've had it crash once, and then my housemate had
which is weird for wrestling games, by the way, because
especially that after 20. Yeah,
it's oh my god, 20. You just clicked on something and it would just be like boom, and you're like, oh, which one is this? And I used to always, you know how you do like the attach and report thing, and I'd just write, like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck is going on?
Why did you sell this? Like,
what is this? And I paid for that game.
See, my favorite part of my story of 2K20 is, so I bought the collector's edition because I love Kurt Angle. He's the human thumb. He's the best. So I wanted just a little picture. It's down there on the shelf behind me. But on the morning of, because I was very lucky. I got to go interview Kofi Kingston, and while I was there, I was having a chat with Mikey, one of the former PR people for 2K, and I was like, "Dude, like I bought the game. Do you want the code back?" He's like, "No." No. It's like my favorite.
Rightfully so.
He's like, "Can you give it to someone?" I'm like, "No,
I'm not putting them through this.
Like, I can't."
That was like, so my sister and my brother-in-law love wrestling. Like they love wrestling. But 2K20, they always come to me first before they buy the game, because they're like, well, he's going to have it. Let's all just like hang out and play it. They're like, we're not spending $90 on this game. And I was like, girl, I don't blame you. Yeah. They would be like, you would have to pay me $90 to play it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, the game was a mess. But yeah, but for all the things since then. Fun. Oh my god, yeah.
And as you said, it allowed for the growth to what it is now.
Oh my god, it was the best. It suited my personality. That game single-handedly funded me being able to buy. I can't point, but you can kind of see it back there. Probably not on this
the Divas
screen
belt?
that I'm on. It's the Bella Twins Divas Championship. Yep. Everyone again is going to get on me because my favorite wrestlers of all time, the Bella Twins, suck an egg. But it funded me to buy that belt. So thank you 2K20 for that, because you really
and also
put a lot of ice.
Drawser in the chat points out it was a mess, but it was our mess.
Exactly.
And that's exactly
but
how I feel about it.
It was like that. It was like, I didn't have a kid, but I could imagine there's a kid that everyone says like you can talk shit about that kid, but like if anyone else talks shit about that kid, you get really mad.
It's like having a brother or sister. Like no one can beat them up.
Sure, but I feel like it's almost that brother and sister. It's like, okay, yeah, I understand why you're talking shit about my brother. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
but don't you say shit, I'll punch you. Yeah.
It was just a giant mess. But yeah, it was just crazy. But since that game, every time I click on something, I always feel like I'm like, is this going to break the game? Like, it's loading kind of slow. I'm like, is it going to break? That's
PTSD,
how I feel.
A little trauma.
Yeah, exactly. But this game, I say that now, you watch me play this game tomorrow and it just constantly crashes. And I'm like, well, I jinxed myself. But I feel like there's enough of this game to keep me going for a little while. One thing actually I just thought about is, do you like how spread out the DLC is?
No. Because I want it, because I'm impatient and I want it now.
I don't want to be still getting stuff in November for this game.
I do like that though, because it means there is a long tail and they're actively looking at ways to support it. And that's great. That's lovely, because like if you front load it with DLC, that's a bit shit too. But the idea is from a business standpoint, the layout of this is, the idea is you do it like say 2 months apart, so people come in. So even if people drop off, they'll come back. They drop off, they'll come. And 2 months is enough time that someone will go, I won't delete it off my console.
Sure, but I think my biggest problem with this DLC is that I have to wait until September to play as Nia Jax and Kairi Sane, and all of these people that probably should be a little bit earlier.
What are you saying? You don't want to wait for McAfee and his bros?
Why is that coming out before Lia Valkyria? You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck is the problem here? Like, that, I think maybe I'm just a little bit like that. I just think about, like, in September, that's what, 6 months away.
Mm-hmm.
my math is not great.
No,
but yeah, 6 months away.
Bang on, yeah.
My math is bang on. I just feel like in September when that DLC comes out, it'll be the end of the AFL season. That's a long time.
And the AFL
you know what I mean? Like
just started.
Exactly. So I have to wait an entire thing just to get that. That's how my brain works. It's just like that's a long time to wait. Like that's
6
now
pay-per-views.
That's 3 seasons of weather that we're going through. Autumn, winter, spring. Before we even get our hands on people that maybe questionably should have been in the game from the very beginning.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it, anything like that. But to your point, I do like the fact that like with DLC coming out all the way till November, and then a new game launch seemingly in
March or April the next year.
March. That's only a few months, so like they're putting some stock. No matter what, they have to add a patch to add the characters in the game in November. So
yeah, which means you assume that they will be supporting it in some capacity. So ideally, some of the issues that we do have or the criticisms that we do have can be like there's no chance for them to just drop it and go, the new game comes out in 6 months. We'll deal with it then. Like they are forced to actively work on it up until near the last minute, which. Hopefully that's a good thing as well. But as we're approaching near an hour and a half of this, I was expecting like a 20-30 minute, but little did I realize that you and I in my back of my mind, I was like, no, this makes sense. This does make sense.
Yeah. Gift to gab, could talk underwater.
We do, and it's about something that we truly love, so... it makes it super easy for us to talk for this long. So, so once again, to wrap this up, big thank you to the team over at 2K Australia for providing us the copies to sit here and have an hour and a half conversation about a game that we just truly, like, utterly enjoy. And it's been a pleasure to sit and talk to you again, Josh. Like, it's been a while since we've done some work together. We hung out at Elimination Chamber, which was great to finally meet you in person.
I know.
And then you're coming back over for some sports, and we'll find a way to get to the city.
Sports!
Coming out again. But
I love footy. Everyone knows that.
it's a joy. I love doing little side. I love deep diving into like because with the weekly show that we do, it's touches a little bit of everything. Where like here, I just get to like really nerd out on something, which is stacks of fun. But if anyone does want to hear more about what you do, what you have to say, where can everyone check you out?
I guess the best place probably to check me out is probably on my Twitter because that can kind of lead you into everything you need to. At JoshRobinson00. Pretty much everywhere across on every social media, pretty much is that. And you can find all my links that you need to find it in my TikTok and my YouTube and my Twitch. Everything that I do. All of the work. I do a lot of work with a place called Love Wrestling. Basically, they... That is Spencer Love and Zach Ralph, who are based in Canada. And I do some content for them. I recently did interviews for them. So, I do a lot of stuff. I guess in the last little month or so, you may have seen my face around somewhere, which is weird to say. But, I just have a lot of fun solely based on
a lot of my stuff your pod as well.
And I do a podcast every single Friday with my buddy Ray. We talk a lot about the joys of living in boring old Adelaide. So if you like to come and... I know a lot of people are probably like, there's people that live in Adelaide that aren't 84. Yeah, me and Ray are pretty much the only two people that aren't. Yeah, so we talk about Rundle Mall a lot, so you can come hang out with us every single Friday. You can find that on my Twitter as well. I think that's basically all I do. Just follow me on. If you really want to watch Unhinged, Josh, I suggest following me on TikTok because I talk about some stuff.
Oh, your TikTok is stacks of fun, and as is your Twitch, as is your Twitter feed. Like if you want to see anyone that just utterly appreciates and adores women's wrestling, Josh is 100% the person to do
I'm
that.
the guy.
But if for myself, as I mentioned, this is More the Players, a supplementary show. Each and every week, myself and my co-host Max, we do a show called For the Players, the PopCulturists PlayStation Podcast. It's considered like the late show of PlayStation Podcasts in that it's lighthearted, it's silly, it's chock full of personality, but it's also backed with years of experience, years of knowledge, and it's always just good fun, essentially. That's every Monday morning at 8 a.m. on your podcast services, 9 a.m. on the YouTubes. This YouTube feed that you are looking at right now, or this podcast feed listening to right now, there's more here. If you just happen to stumble across it, because maybe it's got out there in the wild. It's awesome. But until the next one, I'm Ryan Betson. That was Josh Robinson. This was WWE 2K24, and we'll see you next time.